You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and John.
Hey, welcome back to Guitar Talk. I'm Dave.
Hey, this is John. Good morning, afternoon, and evening.
Yes, it is morning for you. It is right about little afternoon for me. So tell me, did you have anything going on this weekend other than the Super Bowl on Sunday that you were just so fascinated with? Thank you.
Everybody's talking about how this was the worst Super Bowl ever. Maybe I'm a guy that likes defensive games. I don't know. I wasn't bored to tears by it.
I thought it was a good game.
Yeah.
Who
knows? I mean,
my team won. How can I complain?
Right. I mean, I'm here in LA, but I'm not a Rams fan. You know, when I grew up, the Rams were St. Louis. I think, when did the Rams move to St. Louis? You're listening to Sports Talk with
It had to be in the
late
80s. Yeah, because I do recall they were in LA in the late 70s, early 80s.
I know that during like a part of my childhood, they were still the Los Angeles Rams.
Right.
So I imagine that if that's the case, it had to have been somewhere between like 87 and 90. But anyways, they're the St. Louis Rams to me. I have no affiliation to St. Louis, so I don't care, you know.
Yeah.
If I had to pick a Los Angeles team, I'm a Dodgers fan. I like that, but I don't care about football here. I'm a Lions fan, and my team will never win the Super Bowl. Ever.
Got that right. Well, you never say never, but definitely
in the
not,
toilet bowl.
Maybe not in our lifetime.
So
let me
that's all
ask,
I did.
anything this weekend? Nothing over the weekend? No gigs?
No, man. I was supposed to have a rehearsal yesterday, but because of the Super Bowl and some family stuff that I was doing instead, we did that. And that was it. So nice. I edited a couple of videos, and that was it.
Yes, I saw your son watching Pantera.
He, he liked it.
That was good. Yeah, so I had a gig on Saturday night. It was an acoustic gig. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of people come out, and it was just a great time. A couple of new fans, so that was good. And then Sunday morning, we did a funk band rehearsal and worked on a couple of new tunes. And I may post something from that on my Facebook Dave's Guitar channel. But it was fun. It was a great rehearsal. I feel like that band is really going to do something good. But I think I'm going to try to find a second keyboard player to fill in with the strings and the horn section stuff.
Cool. Okay.
Play like keyboard, but be like that utility person to fill in where stuff may be lacking.
Let me ask you a question about your acoustic gig.
Sure.
How many women in the audience came up after the show and said, was it phosphor or 80-20?
Well, actually, they all did. No. Nobody. You know me, I love 80-20, but on that Takamine I use phosphor bronze, and I love it on that guitar. I will say this. So the other night, Thursday night, I'm playing, and my battery dies, and I don't even look in my case to see that of course, I have backup batteries for the gig. But it was the last song of the night, coming up to the last song. And the other guitar player plays guitar and piano, and he was going to do piano on the last song. So I said, well, let me see. I'll just use your guitar for the last song. He's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I plugged him into my cable, which I go through the hardwire reverb, and then it goes into the mixing board. And I am in shock at how horrible it sounds, this Taylor versus the Takamine with the Cool Tube preamp. Anything. I mean, I can't even describe what I didn't like. It was so mid-rangey. I couldn't get out of that mid-range hell that it was in. I hated it. I was in such shock. And then
what model was it?
It's either a 210 or a 310. It's just it's like a dreadnought. But it's the same, it's the
Did they put the full-blown Taylor NS system in like the 200 and 100 series?
Yes.
Oh, they do.
It's the Rupert Neve, yeah. Not a good sounding guitar. And I recall when I used to play the Taylors that I used to have a board and I would go through a preamp and I would go through all these different things because I would want to color the sound and change it, and it sounded good then. But going just direct versus my Takamine, and I have the David Lindley model, like the 765 or so. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it has the the open headstock, which is the only thing about it I don't like. But it's got a real fat neck. I love that guitar.
Is it a 12 fret neck?
I don't know.
No, it's got an open headstock.
Yeah,
so it's like a slotted headstock, like a nylon string guitar.
Slotted headstock. Yeah, they call it the David Lindley model. Like I guess he worked with them to.
I was gonna say, I think I usually have only seen that with a 12 fret neck. I mean, I totally believe that it could be with a 14, but that would be kind of unique and cool.
Show you a picture of it.
Alrighty. Oh, yeah, look at that thing. Wow, that's a nice looking guitar. When did you get that?
I expected it at the 12th fret. Well, it's like the 13th or so. No, it's right at the 12th fret.
Yeah, 12th fret. All right. When did you get that? That's cool.
Oh, it's a beautiful guitar. I got this guitar.
Isn't she a beauty?
Buttery, the tone. It's like a what is? Oh, in fact, I just watched that episode. It's the gnomes and Tweak, and he says something like,
"I love it,"
like an Arizona sunset. Oh, the warm something of rain, whatever he says. The first warm rays of sun on an Arizona morning. I'm just like, this guy's a genius. But that's like the whole acoustic guitar world. So in 2012, Joe Montoya called me and asked me if I would do a bunch of clinics.
Okay.
For Takamine. They lined me up with, I think I did 8, something like that, maybe a little less. But anyways, he was like, we'll give you an instrument. And I said, oh, okay. So I asked him for the first gig I did, the instrument I was to play was that 740 FS. And I said to him, oh, if you guys could give me one of those, remember the bluegrass models?
Yeah.
And I wanted a bluegrass model, and he called me up and says, yeah, they discontinued it and there's none left. How would you like to keep that David Lindley model? And I'm like, giddy up.
That's cool.
So I've been using it ever since. Oh, it's awesome. I've been using it ever since. It's great.
You still have your master built?
Yes.
That was a good sounding guitar too.
Excellent. In fact, I mean, it's funny. I use it when I teach. It was probably the best guitar to record in the studio. And when I had those Taylors, I was like, yeah, this sounds better than the Taylors acoustically. At least on my engineer's mics. And so that was cool. But yeah, so that was anyways, that sounds better with the phosphor bronze, oddly enough. We had a great gig. And then it's funny, people see me on Facebook and they message me and they're like it's usually at night, and they're like, what are you doing on here? And I'm like, I am in Marketplace. I am just constantly in Marketplace looking to see if some housewives are selling their kids' guitars who went to college a couple of years back and never came back for their gear. And I feel like they're just cleaning up. And it's happened a few times. So I've seen it, like, especially in some towns, I'll ask questions about something and they're like, yeah, this is all, I mean, we don't really care what it's worth. You know, it's like, oh. So you can find some great deals on Marketplace. And then, of course, there's always what happens is a lot of people will post there and overvalue their equipment. But so I was just looking around and I found a guy was selling a Marcus Miller bass for $600.
All right.
This is a great deal for the.
Is it the American one?
The Mexican one. The American was a 5-string and this was a 4. And then I was like, yeah, you know, if it was a 5, I know that was USA. I'd rather have the 5, not because it's USA, but just because I have 3 4-string basses. I don't need a 4th. But if the right 5-string would come along. And so then I was looking on G&L's page and I saw that they had a clearance page and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that's a cool deal.
So taking your advice that, well, I don't know if it was advice, but you told me that you thought that Ron had started running G&L. I reached out to him and found out that was true. He's probably going to come on the show sometime soon, but worked me out an artist deal, and I ended up getting that.
That's cool.
String kiloton should be here soon, I would imagine. I haven't got a tracking number, but I should ask him for it. I think he said he was going to send me one, but I think he just, for whatever reason, didn't. But yeah, so it'll be cool. It'll be a nice addition. I love 5-string bass. It's a little harder to funk around, especially the way I play, but it'll be good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be probably similar to like a 7-string feels, I imagine, as a bass player. Like you got that one more string, it's on top, and so it changes your entire perspective when you're looking down at it and you're playing, and you're used to the E string being that top string and being home bass, but now all of a sudden your E string is where your A string should be, and you're just like, what am I doing? How is it possible that just adding one string has completely thrown me into a loop?
You know what's funny is I'm sitting here and I do this to myself all the time. Because when you think guitar and then you think music, you always say the opposite. Because when you said it's on the top, I'm like, no, it's on the bottom.
Oh, and yeah, I'm talking physically on top.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. It's funny. It's a thing with guitar players because they'll always say to you, yeah, it's at the top. Wait, which top? The high E or the low E? Because I always think of the bottom as the top because I'm thinking of it musically. But yeah, so, it's funny. The thing with 7 strings for me was, and I had a few at one point, and I got rid of them. Talk about getting rid of something as soon as you get it. I just thought the pickups for them didn't sound good. And I couldn't find a pickup that kept it, that I could go from 6 to 7 and be like, oh, okay, now these are a little bit uniform and I don't have to mess too much with my tone. That I found it in a live application unusable. So then I came up with, when I had a Jackson that, with the locking everything, and I locked it down to a special tuning to a low B, to an F sharp, and then standard from there. So it was D, G, B, E from 4th to 1. But the 2 lows was a B and an F sharp. And it gave me that sound of like having the 7 string, but it also gave me a better tone. I was able to use, I think I had the Gibson Burstbucker in that guitar. So it was just great. But that's the problem I have with any of these instruments is like, people really design a pickup and for years spent it doing it around the 6 strings and the coils a certain height. And now, what do you do when you're like, oh, well, this is 5,000. Well, 5,000 turns on a bobbin that's meant for a 6 string is not the same as 5,000 turns on a bobbin that's spaced for a 7 string.
Sure.
So
I had the 7 strings too. I think when I started at West LA, when I first met you, I had those old Ibanez Prestige 7 strings. They were like the RG 7620s, which were basically like the Universe without a pickguard. And I think I had DiMarzio Evolutions in those guitars. And I found that having a 7 string with that low B register, you needed a really bright pickup to make that articulation happen on that low string. And as you so eloquently pointed out early on, this pickup sucks. I remember you saying that. And I haven't put an Evolution in one of my guitars ever since. It was weird. It was like it was the one that worked with the low B on the 7 string, but it didn't sound good anywhere else.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I got articulation now on this low mushy string, but I can't play it clean. I can't, whatever, because it just it wasn't a pleasing sounding pickup. I wonder how it is nowadays because they've gone way beyond 7 string. Now you can get 8 strings and it's pretty commonplace, and 9 strings, and that means there's a lot more people producing pickups for that sort of thing. And I know that there's a lot more 7 string options than there ever were 15 years ago when I was screwing around with it.
Yeah, I just think that the need to go to 7. Let me just say this: on acoustic guitars, there was a guy named Lenny Breau. or brew, bro, Breau.
Lenny Bra.
Are you familiar with the name at all?
Yeah.
Okay, the guy's phenomenal. One of the greatest guitar players, a virtuoso, plays beautifully, revolutionary player as far as like what he's doing on the guitar. And you basically need one of those. A world filled with people trying to do what he's doing becomes a mess. And so it's like, I think all these guys playing 7, I'm like, couldn't you have done that on a 6? Like, are you really doing, is the 7-string doing something like, I understand somewhere in the 70s that Tony Iommi, the fingers were hurting him and he used to detune basically because of his fingers. And when we have these real low, like Into the Void by Black Sabbath, and so then things were like, now people are like, oh, we can go lower. Let's go. Where does it end? I mean, does it get to the point where everyone's just playing strings that are flubbing, going, you know what I mean? It's like, I just think it's gotten to the point where,
you're listening to bullfrogs.
Exactly. No, but it's true. It's like, what's going on with all these lower tunings? I mean, to me, it's like, how about come up with a different tuning, like an alternate tuning, like Chris Cornell would do,
right,
and make it sound interesting and make it sound nice and do it for a musical context, not for the acrobatics. You know, anytime I see these 8-string players play, it's always the same thing. When someone tells me, oh, in this band, the guitar player plays an 8-string, I could tell already, because the guy's going to be one of these guys that wants to sweep 8 strings, and it's just this constant masturbatory listening session where it's like, I could go drive into Berklee School of Music and hang out in the hallways and hear that coming out of every room of everybody practicing, because that's what it sounds like. When someone tells me, oh, this kid, he's got an instrumental guitar album. Yeah, I'm not buying someone's record of hearing them practice. That goes for Joe Satriani, Steve Vai. To me, that's what it sounds like. Yeah, you know what? When Steve Vai played on the Whitesnake album, I'll listen to that album. When he played with David Lee Roth, I'll listen to it. When he's put out 900 instrumental albums, yeah, practice on your own time.
What did you think of Animals as leaders in terms of what they're doing? Because their approach, Tosin Abasi, you familiar with him?
I am.
Very different approach. Not a lot of sweeping and stuff. It's a lot more different techniques. I don't think it's any more musical per se.
No.
If you're looking for a simple melody or if you're looking for a good quality song, in the traditional sense, you're not going to get it. But a different approach entirely.
Well, if you ever watch when VH1 had Storyteller, and Storyteller is a way where you can strip down somebody's song to the bare essence of, and it's a great thing. You have the artist and you have the song. And if you can't take a song down and make it either acoustically or down to its vibe, I really feel like you have a hard time selling me a good song. To give you an example, in my funk band, we do a song called Got to Give It Up by Marvin Gaye. And if you listen to the song, there's really nothing going on musically with it. It's just somewhat holding down. It does like a 1-4-5, but mainly it holds down the A, and it's just boom, boom, boom. Then it goes to the G-A, boom, boom. And until he comes up with, I used to go to parties, and he does this melody, and it's kind of nice. I wouldn't say it's great, but at the end when he goes to keep on dancing, ooh, got to give it up, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's the song. And he really has just taken this little melody and made it like a 9-minute disco song. Not one of my favorites, but I mean, you could take down anything down and strip it down to the basics of what it is, Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times when you take down the basics of these 8-string guitar players in their bands, you're like, oh, yeah, no, I still don't like that. In fact, I may like it less. I don't get what the hell's I'm listening to here.
So you're saying that gent wouldn't translate to an acoustic guitar song. No, I hear you. I hear you. There's a lot of that out there where
Oh, no.
what you're listening to, and this is like Yngwie to me. You can go and see it live and be like, what? For like 2 songs. But then you're like, let's go home.
I'm going to make 2 points onto that. The first one is if you look at Yngwie and you just take, what was his third album? Trilogy?
Mm-hmm.
Or what was the album? There was another album after that, like Odyssey or something.
Odyssey. Yeah.
Not a big fan of those records. And if you listen to that stuff, it's really just a guy running up and down the scales. It's not the greatest. But does that say Yngwie's not a great guitar player? He's phenomenal. But if you look at Alcatraz, that first album and the live album, where there's a band writing songs and he's not in charge. He's not the producer in charge, and he's a worker bee. And it's like, this is where the singer needs to shine, and now the keyboard player, now Yngwie, do your thing. Right. It's phenomenal.
The guy's crazy good. It's not a commentary on Yngwie. It's a commentary on his songwriting.
It's a commentary on him as concert master / producer /
right.
Yes, he should not be leading the helm because I don't think he is in touch with a certain level of songwriting.
Right.
And that's fine. And you could take the same thing for Uli Roth, who's a very similar style player. You could, when you put him in the context of give him 1 or 2 songs an album to write, but then Rudolf Schenker's and Klaus Meine are writing the brunt of the material, it fits so much nicer. Then it's like, oh, he is friggin' phenomenal, and he's doing what's great for the song.
You can, I don't, you mentioned Vi earlier. I don't think Vi was good with Whitesnake.
Well, he didn't write anything in the band. It was all those songs were written by Adrian Vandenberg.
But you listen to the stuff that, and we've talked about this before, maybe even on the show, maybe not. But you listen to the earlier stuff where it was Sykes or it was it Bernie Marsden?
Mm-hmm.
It's all better material than what Vi's on. All
100%. 100%. When Vi plays, the tone is ridiculously horrible.
I don't understand that. The guy's technically amazing, and he even had good gear. How do you have like these Bogners and custom audio electronics stuff hand built by Bob Bradshaw, and then you make it sound terrible?
He just has a terrible tone.
I guess, man.
He just has some people don't hear it. He has a terrible, terrible tone.
Yeah, he's never been my favorite.
And, I think if you listen to like maybe the first David Lee Roth album, his tone was decent.
It was okay. But
and I will say I just don't think he's got it as far as like getting what the tone should sound like. I mean, you listen to Van Halen and it's like,
that guy's got it.
Monstrous.
Right.
And
George Lynch never had good tone either. He was one. He struggled. Yeah. Except for what was the record called that had Kiss of Death on it?
Was that Lynch Mob?
No, it was before that. It was Still Dockin'.
Oh.
With the Kiss of Death. It was a cool song, but the rhythm guitar sound was terrible, but the lead guitar sound was good.
Yeah, I think if you took the Dokken album, Tooth and Nail, and you went in and you recut the album, and you really had producer go in and really fix George Lynch's tone. I would even keep George Lynch as the player on it, but just fix the tone of that guitar and make it sound like a bigger, fuller record. That album would be one of the best albums of the 80s, period. I love the songs on that.
You know the melody. That's a really good melody.
Oh, Tooth and Nail, Alone Again. My favorite was Just Got Lucky. I was like, this is a pop metal song. I wish it had a decent sound. It sounded thin coming out of my old Pioneer boombox back when I was in 1983, 84, whenever the hell the record came out. But, you listen to like the tone on British Steel. That's a great guitar tone, like rapid fire.
Yeah, great.
Put that tone on that Dokken record, and that Dokken record's going to be a hard record to beat. Especially Don Dokken was singing good then, that whole album.
Yeah. They got to fix the drums, too.
Oh,
drum sound. Sure. The whole production was rubbish.
Thin.
Yeah. Thin. And then, what was it? Under Lock and Key came after that. We need to get Tony on this show.
Oh, yeah. We do.
We absolutely do. Under Lock and Key is a lot more poppy, but again, it sounded a little better. They figured out how to polish it a little more. But the snare drum is just like that 80s snare drum where it's like, and you're like, why is the snare drum the centerpiece of the entire mix? I don't get it.
And the guitar tone was terrible again.
Also, yeah.
He had he just started adding so much delay and so much echo and reverb that it was just like, it sounds like somebody using a ping pong delay in a racquetball court. It was like, what? It was just ridiculous.
In my dreams, you're still the same.
Besides being a great player, Yngwie's tone was this drier, in-your-face, still classic rock and roll, very Richie Blackmore, deep Purple style tone. So everyone was hearing Yngwie, and they're like, oh, that's what my heroes would sound like if they really shredded. When you hear George Lynch on those records, you're like, that's what a guy sounds like when he doesn't know what sounds good.
There's a few tones that come out of that 80s period that are just absolutely phenomenal, and they make me want to continue to play a Strat. Yngwie's tone is so good.
Did you see at NAMM they released the Yngwie Custom Shop guitar this year?
Nah, I don't give a shit.
Burgundy Mist. They did a Burgundy Mist and a vintage white for Yngwie.
It's nice that they made a Burgundy Mist for everybody because there's such call for an Yngwie Custom Shop to be done in Burgundy Mist. Hey, what color does Yngwie never play? Let's do that one. Let's do Burgundy Mist. Yeah.
But you know what's funny is I was watching an old Cars documentary. It was called like Guitars, Cars, and Elliot Easton. And Elliot Easton had a real old 60s rear Strat made in Burgundy Mist. And he's like, oh, it's a very rare color. And I'm like watching it, of course, in 2019 going, no, it ain't.
Yeah, not anymore.
For the last 5 years, they've been pouring that color down everybody's throat.
Oh, man.
I'm waiting for when they do the Tahitian coral everywhere. That's the color I want.
There you go.
You know what one I want? Tahitian coral.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you.
No, you don't want a Sonic Blue or anything, do you, with a maple neck?
God forbid. Hey, what did you think about, because we have to talk about everything that happened at the halftime show. Super Bowl halftime show. We had a couple of cool guitars on stage.
Yeah, well, he was playing a relic, looked like a relic like Strat that he probably went there himself with a sander to get all that finish taken off. And then
had a nickel plated humbucker in the bridge.
Yeah, and what was it? A Floyd in the bridge? Was that a Floyd bridge? What was the bridge?
I don't remember. I'd have to look.
It wasn't a standard bridge. It looked huge.
All right. Well, what did you think of the performance? I heard this is America can't be made happy ever. Adam Levine was not auto-tuned last night, and you could tell because he had some moments of pitchiness. And I commend him for not being auto-tuned. Good for him.
I have to be honest. I'm not a fan of Matchbox 20, but the performance they did last night was exactly great. It was
It was Maroon 5 Kid.
What did I say? Matchbox 20?
Yeah.
Rob Thomas. Rob Thomas. Let me just say Rob Thomas real quick, because the other night we were listening to a band do a song that Rob Thomas sang with Santana, and I was like, I could not think of his name. So for Emily right now, it's Rob Thomas. So anyways, getting back to Maroon 5, I don't really care for their songs as much as I don't care for Matchbox 20. But I thought they did a great job. Like if you're a fan of them, you had to love what was going on. And if you're not a fan of them, you're going to say it was crap. But it wasn't crap. They did a good job. When the rapper guy came on, I have no idea what was going on then. And they did this whole SpongeBob thing. And, you know, I got to be honest, I was half paying attention. I really don't care.
It does look kind of like a Floyd. I'm looking at it right now, but it also kind of doesn't look like a Floyd, but it could just be the lighting.
But I couldn't tell what it was. It was big.
Yeah, it's very big, and the only image I can find of it is not clear.
Well, does it have a locking nut on his guitar? That's the other
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
It does. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a Floyd style guitar. That's all I
Yeah.
noticed.
Yeah.
I
It's
saw it was this huge, big chrome abomination on stage, and that's like the first thing I notice when I see someone playing what
okay.
looks like a '60s vintage Strat.
I see another photo here, and yes, it's definitely a Floyd.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I just saw for a second that it was just a big. It looked like it was in a big space, and it looks like it's an odd looking thing to see on a '60s. What year is the guitar looking like? A '61? Is it a rosewood neck? A
It's a
rosewood board? I
rosewood
mean,
board, and then they
yeah,
heavily aged the lacquer on the headstock to make it look old. So I'm guessing that this is a 60s model.
yeah. I'm probably
21 fret.
Yeah, 61 is probably. Where's the you could see a picture of it. We're on the pick guard. The screw above the middle pickup. Is it super close or is it far away?
Seeing if I can get a shot that's good enough to reveal that. It above the middle pickup?
Yeah.
It's relatively close.
So it's the closer one, which would take you before 63, I believe. So it's probably a 62 or a 61.
It's an 11 screw pick guard. It's not an 8 screw.
No, 8 screw they did 8 screw one year with a rosewood. That was 59. And only
right.
59 they did 8 screw, 9 screw, 10 screw, and 11 screw all in one year. They were busy trying to figure out what to do. By 60, everything's 11 screw. But the middle screw was in the wrong place. The one that's by the middle pickup on the top, or is it the front pickup? There's one screw that's way too close to the pickup screw. That got moved for the modern board, and that starts in like 64.
Okay.
Everything 63, mid 63. Everything before that is going to be that screw in the wrong place, which is why if you go to Fender and you're buying a pick guard, why there is a difference between a 62 pick guard and a modern pick guard, and that's the difference. It's where that top middle screw is.
So speaking of the wrappers, because this was the best thing that I took from yesterday, the guy that you're talking about with the SpongeBob thing was a rapper named Travis Scott.
Okay.
It's a hell of a stage name, right? Like you've got a world with Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, MC Light.
Right.
Travis Scott.
MC Light. Who the hell's pulling out MC Light?
I can't think of it. I'm just going off the top of my head here. But Travis Scott, for the record, did you know that Travis Scott's real name is Jacques Berman Webster?
Ah.
So how did that happen? Like, have you ever been in a band situation where they're like, Dave Levine's not a strong stage name? What do you think about Philip Thomas?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Travis Scott is like exactly. You're going to change your name. Change it to a rap name.
Yeah, it's a very odd move.
Like Dr. Travis Scott.
I was shocked when I learned that. I was just like, boy, that's a strange move.
Right, anyway. You ever see there used to be a great skit on Saturday Night Live where the guy was like Dr. something and the couple was like, "Oh my God, you're a doctor? My daughter's dating a doctor? That's so cool." He goes, "No, I'm an orderly. Dr. something's my DJ name." It was great.
What was his name? Big Boy.
Yeah.
I tell you. How much more fun would it have been if it was like Big Boy, like the hamburger place, if they just rolled him out? Yeah, they get a Bob's Big Boy out there on like a float. Everybody in the crowd gets a hamburger.
Do you remember Jeff, the drummer? Jeff Van Veen.
Yeah. Oh, Dutch.
Yeah, Jeff Van Veen was the drummer on that Outkast record.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Which one? The one that had like Hey Ya on it?
Hey Ya and I Like the Way You Move.
Yeah.
I think he played
so that was...
According to what I remember
they're from
hearing.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason he was there.
Right, and I think he recorded it down there because he told me that he did they got him for 4 songs, and then when he got the album, he's like, "Oh, they just cut up my drumming and put it all over the record."
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, he wasn't laughing.
Yeah, right. I'm sure.
But,
so another interesting tidbit. Do you know who the audio engineer for the Super Bowl halftime show is?
No.
Mike Klink.
Oh, that name sounds familiar. Is he the producer of did he engineer or produce something big? Metal album.
Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Let's see what else Mike Klink has been up. Because Mike Klink is a name that, at least to me, I thought was kind of a household name when it came to
No, that's
production.
Colonel Klink.
That's true. So he's done Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Whitesnake, Jefferson Starship, Triumph, The Babies, Sea Hags, whoever that is.
Hold on. What Babies record did he do?
I don't have
Love Head First.
I don't have that detailed information in front of me.
In fact, from the Babies, do you remember Tony Brock?
No.
He messages me on Instagram all the time. He keeps sending me things of where they're gigging and stuff. I don't know why he's doing that, but Tony Brock was the drummer for the Babies, and then he went and played with Rod Stewart for years.
Rod Stewart. What's he up to these days? Is he still alive?
He's still playing. David Palmer's been playing drums for him. I love him. He's awesome. Palmer started with ABC, and then he played with The. And I was a big The fan.
Having a hard time finding his credit for the Babies.
Great record by The. Check out an album called Mind Bomb. It's phenomenal.
Mind Bomb.
Johnny Marr plays guitar on it.
All right.
Yeah, it's really good.
He did. He was a producer, engineer, audio engineer on Rust in Peace.
Oh, okay. Worked for Max Norman.
Yep, he did. He has a producer and engineer credit on both of the Guns N' Roses Use Your Illusion albums. He has. Let's go a little newer here.
Now, was Max the? Max was the engineer on the Ozzy records.
Yeah, I think he was. He did engineer work for Puff Daddy. He did more engineering work for Metallica, for Megadeth.
Wow.
Sammy Hagar, Whitesnake. Eddie Money. I know you're a big Eddie Money fan.
Listen, I saw Eddie Money at the House of Blues on Sunset, and I walked in and he's singing a song. Hey. I'm like, this guy looks like Rodney. He was up there going like, I think I'm in love, pulling on his tie,
right,
doing the Rodney bit. I was just like, hey, I tell you it ain't easy, I tell you. He used to thank me for flying. The guy's up there doing these songs. He's like, I've got 2 tickets. I mean, he looked just like Rodney. It was hilarious.
That's funny. So anyway, yeah, there you go. Mike Klink is the engineer. How did you feel about Adam Levine, who's one of your cousins, I believe?
Yeah, right.
How did you feel about him playing that flare gun red Ibanez gem? Did you notice that one?
I did. It was pink, I thought.
Yeah, I think they call it Road Flare Red.
Yeah, it's pink. This is, folks, if Road Flare Red is it's the pink of the 50s TV yellow.
Right.
That thing was pink.
I was fine with it. Second big show where I see somebody who you wouldn't expect playing a guitar like that. Because if you remember a few years ago at like one of the music award shows, John Mayer came strolling out with a custom shop Jackson soloist that was like all pink. You remember that one? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I was just going to say, the Pink Jackson is, to me, synonymous with Jeff Beck, because that's what he used to play in the 80s when he was doing, like, Infatuation with Rod Stewart. He played the Jacksons for a while. Yeah, I didn't think anything of it. I just was like, why is he switching to, like, a metal-style guitar? And in the beginning, I was like, why is he playing, like, a vintage, beat-up 61, 62 looking Strat with a Floyd Rose? I find the whole thing like, at that point you have to look at it like that is a part of the wardrobe, but because I'm not really hearing him play. But I mean, they did fine. I have no problem with Maroon 5. I almost said Matchbox 20 again. I have no problem with Maroon 5. I just don't care for their songs, and I find it boring.
They're very safe and very
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got to close things out pretty soon here, but how did you feel about the overall performance of your Pats? They won. It's number 6.
It was a great defensive game on both parts. Both teams had a great method of shutting down the other team. It just gets hard, and I knew it would be hard for anybody to shut down Brady for 4 quarters.
Brady was on the field. I didn't look at the stats, but he was on the field a lot longer than Goff was.
Sure. Yes.
And I have a feeling when you saw that touchdown happen, it looked like, I wonder if the Rams defense is starting to wear down.
Oh,
because totally. They were on the field. I think that's what happened.
It's what happens with the Patriots a lot is they get worn down by Brady constantly wearing them down. And it's like Brady stays on the field. He gets a couple of first downs more than the other team does. He keeps the defense on the field. That when you get to the 4th quarter, it's like, yeah, you guys are beat. And those guys aren't so tired on offense. They're not playing that much. They're, different plays and moving guys in and out. Edelman does a great play. Edelman sits out the next play. It's like they wear them down. They did a great job. They did exactly what I would have thought if somebody said both defenses are going to shut the other one down. I would have been like, great, we're going to win. Because Brady will wear the other team down. It's just what he does. I don't think he had the greatest game of his life. He didn't connect on a bunch of stuff, and but that's okay.
Right.
It's his 6th Super Bowl victory.
Yeah, there's not many guys out there who have the gumption to throw a pick early in a Super Bowl, and it doesn't even faze them, and they maintain their line the whole game.
Yeah, he's tough.
Says a lot, man.
That's a great team, there's not much more to say about it. But I think the game before that against the Chiefs was a great game and a tough.
I didn't see that one.
Exciting. It might have been a better for a viewer. It might have been a better game than the Super Bowl. And I probably said at one point that game was the Super Bowl. But it is what it is. I'm not a huge into sports. I stopped watching football kind of a couple of years ago when the whole take a knee thing went down, and I was just like, you know what? If sports is a one place I don't want to see politics, and when I start seeing it, I turn it off. So
yeah.
As far as the music things go for the halftime show, I love Gladys Knight. I've always thought she was phenomenal. And if you go watch some videos of her when she's younger and hear songs like Friendship Train, before she did Midnight Train to Georgia, when she still had the long, long hair, she was great. I mean, she was soulful. That band was great. And I always liked her. And for her to come out and be like, hey, you know what? I'm singing the anthem. And if you don't like it, go blow. Good for her. I thought she was a class act. I thought she sounded great.
Yeah, I was surprised that she's almost 75 years old. And I mean, I know it's makeup and hair dye and everything else that happens, but she looked great for 75 years old. Holy hell. I'll be dead before I'm 75.
Yeah, well, she always looked young. When she was young, she looked young. And then when she cut her hair in that bob cut, when she was doing like, that's what friends are for. In that video, she gave herself a younger haircut. She was looking older than she was. And now she's gone back to like much more of a classic look. I think she looks great.
She's good for her.
Great. And I think some of the young performers can learn something from some of the old performers, back when
we
want to get out there and it's a job. And like people out there like, what's his name? Adam Levine, I thought did a good job. All right, John, have a good week. I know you got to run. We got to cut this short. And I will talk to you next week.
This is the shortest 50-minute show I've ever been on. Anyway, very good. Good talking as always. I'll catch you guys later.
All right, very good.
You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and John.